Welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the law firm of Abercrombie and Ssanchez, PLLC. You can find us on the internet at astxlegal.com or by calling 1-888-981-7509. Your hosts are Bryan Abercrombie and Samuel Sanchez. Bryan has been practicing law for 18 years and is board certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization in the area of family law. Sam has been practicing for 13 years, is licensed in both Texas and Florida, and is a certified mediator. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and all views are the opinion of the hosts. It is not designed to provide legal advice for your particular legal matter, and it should not replace the advice of competent counsel. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast for January 31st, last day of January of 2020. Welcome, and with me as always is my partner, Sam Sanchez. How you doing, Sam?
Doing well, Bryan. Doing well. Glad to be back.
Yes. So we got some exciting topics today. Like I said, we were starting off the new year with some new stuff and new topics. So we wanted to talk about social media in the context of court and family law. So, I mean, social media can apply, I think, across almost all spectrums of law. But specifically, we'll talk a little bit about family law. So, Sam, you want to take it away?
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about, we like to start with our celebrity news or celebrity insights.
Yes.
I think this is clearly one that it definitely draws the attention of stars. Stars are all over in social media, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat,
yes.
Whatever it is. And inevitably that, and coupled with the press, they don't find a lot of privacy, and that can obviously lead them into all sorts of peril. Great example, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. I think they call them Benefers. Yeah, Bennifer. Exactly. Ben Affleck feeling like he's, pretty impenetrable, starts, going on benders, hitting strip clubs, social media and it up, press following him around. Inevitably, that led to the demise of that relationship. We've had some pretty high profile encounters as well. Let's think of Channing Tatum and Jenna Dewan. That's still playing out somewhat in social media. I think he's gone to social media to try to kind of plead his case to the public in the hope that maybe it will sway the court, which is not always a great idea.
No, not usually. Not in my experience, at least.
And we can go as far as like billionaires. Let's talk about Jeff Bezos, right? Obviously that whole thing came to light from social media.
Yes. Social media is, when the two of us started practicing law, social media was kind of an afterthought. There was a few little things out there, but not much. Now it's part of everyday life. I mean, I think people are looking at their phone, hundreds of times a day. People are all over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the different ones. And so, your life is online as well as they were talking about by the time a kiddo born now is 18 years of age, they'll have something like 30,000, at least 30,000 data points within the realm of the internet and social media and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure if you're a child and you're halfway involved in social media, it's going to be a heck of a lot more than 30,000.
Oh, absolutely. And now there's, there's the rise of the decline of Snapchat, the uprise of TikTok videos. I mean, these are all things that, when you're young and even when you're not young, you start doing, you think like these are just fun and they get addictive. It becomes a part of your everyday activity, and those can come back to haunt you because what you think is innocent at the time that you post can be used against you later on in court. So yeah,
you've got celebrities now that are having to backtrack, apologize for tweets they made when they were 16 years old. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Oh, it is absolutely crazy, especially because you just don't know what the future holds. You think you're a struggling actor, comedian, a business person, athlete, and then all of a sudden you get, shot into the limelight, 9-10 years later. And people go back and they research all those kinds of things. And now it's at the click of a button to go back and see those, because most of the time you can't get them off.
Yes. Once you put something out into the internet world universe, sometimes it never goes away. So a
That's
lot of
true.
people are finding that out. A lot of celebrities you'll see will post something quick on Twitter or Instagram, and then they'll try to take it down, but somebody's already screenshotted it and it goes viral, and then all of a sudden they're a national laughingstock.
It's absolutely true. And I mean, divorce is complicated enough as it is. Family issues, whether it be a modification, if you're trying to change conservatorship or custody, change possession and access, you have concerns about the other parent. Divorce is complicated all on its own without adding in social media, because as we all know, you type something into the computer or in your phone and you post it, and the context is lost on a lot of people. And so something that may be innocent can absolutely be construed in a negative way that could hurt you.
I mean, when I talk to clients about divorce cases and when I talk to them about social media, you don't ever want to delete anything, because that can be looked at as you're either hiding or potentially destroying evidence. But you want to go into a social media black hole, I think, at least during the pendency of the divorce, because anything you put out there can be misconstrued. It can be taken out of context, like you said. It can be, and you especially don't want to be tweeting about the other parent or Facebooking about the other parent or anything like that, because that is a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. I mean, and spoliation is a big problem. Courts and more have, typically what's going to be called a standing order, which is going to prohibit, once you start the process, prohibit you from deleting or destroying, tampering with, electronic files, postings, media accounts. And so a lot of people go in after the fact, after they've been served or after they filed, to try to do that. And it's a colossal mistake. It really comes back to hurt them tremendously in a case.
Yeah, and expect that, what you put out there on Facebook, to a reasonably competent attorney, if you're ever put on the witness stand for a cross-examination, just expect that your words may be thrust back out against you. And that could be something as benign as sharing an article or retweeting an article that you might have seen. What did you mean by that? Weren't you trying to infer this from posting that article? I mean, it can really be thrown back in your face. So you have to be super careful when going into the divorce context or a child custody case, because, I'm sure you've got a ton of stories, and I've got a ton of stories about, how social media has impacted our case.
Oh, and it's even the innocuous things, Bryan, like the background in a photograph that you post. You may think, well, what, all anybody's looking at is really me in the photograph. But when it comes to litigation, you really encompass everything in a photograph. Are there bottles of wine? Who are the friends that are in there? What are their backgrounds? I mean, it goes on and on and on. So you're absolutely right.
I have a very funny story. One time I was representing a gentleman who was divorcing his wife, and we were in a court case, and she's swearing up and down that she never drank alcohol in front of the children. Never drank alcohol. I mean, just swearing up and down. So what I did was just blow up a picture on her Facebook, made it about 5x7, and presented it to her. It's her holding her child in one hand and holding a beer in the other. So, that kind of blew all of her testimony about how, she didn't drink alcohol around her child to, completely out of the water. And she was on a summer boating trip, and apparently, I guess she forgotten that picture got taken on the boat, and there she is in the swimsuit with the beer in one hand and the kid in the other. So you have to be, like I said, you have to be really careful about what's out there.
Absolutely. And the thing I always tell clients is, just think in the real world. It takes years to build a reputation, good or bad, but it takes a long time to do it. In the courtroom, it takes seconds. It takes seconds to build a reputation, lose rapport with the court, lose the trust. And that really taints everything else that comes from, or enhances everything else that comes from you subsequent to those types of events. So I made kind of a short list of things that I thought we could kind of bounce off of and kind of give people some forewarning about what they.
And that's a super point that you made, because if you ever get to presenting a case in court concerning your divorce, just remember that, if you need 3 days to present your case, you're probably going to get one. If you need a week, you're probably going to get 3 days. So the judge has got the judge or jury, whoever is deciding your case, has a very, very, very short window to see what your life looks like. So impressions that you make are going to go a long way, because there's a very, very small window of information that they're going to get to take a look at.
I couldn't agree more, Brian. Couldn't agree more. So let's talk about some things that I think are kind of the highlight reel of things to contemplate or consider or keep in mind if you're going to file any type of case and you have social media presence, as most of us do. First things first, I would argue that the planning process in relation to filing litigation can be as important as what you do once you've started that process, meaning that you don't want to tip your hand, right? You don't want to jump the gun. You don't want to get ahead of yourself, because a lot of times what you do in that situation is you give the other side the opportunity to perhaps take down those negative posts that you plan to use, or close an account that's no longer available, or block you. And so what happens is we get emotional, right? We get emotional in these types of situations. And the first thing you do when you get mad is, what do you want to do? You want to unfriend somebody. You want to block them on social media. Or doing that can be a colossal mistake, because it instantly puts people on guard. Instantly, they start thinking, well, if they did this, what could be next? And perhaps they're listening to this podcast saying, well, my gosh, these guys are saying I need to clean up my act. I'm going to do it right now because I anticipate something coming down the pipeline.
Yes. And like I said, that's where the social media black hole becomes paramount, because while lawyers can't subpoena Facebook records, or at least it makes it very difficult to do because Facebook's located in California, there are ways to download your entire Facebook history, including everything that you ever commented on, everything you've ever shared, not just the posts that you've made. So going in there and trying to scrub your social media is often a bad idea. You might as well just let it be out there and figure out a way to discuss what's on there. But the best thing to do is probably not, if you're going to contemplate divorce or custody or anything like that, even a criminal case, it's best probably to stay off of social media for a while.
Now, there's not a type of case that you're going to get into that this could be problematic. I don't care if it's probate. I don't care if it's criminal, to your point, family, civil. I mean, a smart lawyer is always going to go to these points of reference to try to disparage witnesses or parties to their benefit. So just be careful with it. Second thing I would tell you to be careful about is oversharing, sometimes even potentially incriminating yourself, right? So the last thing that you want to do is go have a party with a bunch of friends, get intoxicated, run around, and then, they're posting, hey, we're at the police department because you got a PI, or had a terrible night because such and such got arrested for a DWI, or got in an altercation because, whatever those things may be. We feel like our lives are open books a lot of times on social media, and that can be just a tremendous mistake, because putting that kind of negative information about yourself, or you in a conversation, can absolutely be detrimental to your goals in a case.
Yes, so that's a good point, because that's where a lot of these celebrities get in trouble. They may, have kept their phones in the hotel room or kept their phones at home, and they went out to this dinner, and then all of a sudden somebody sees them and snaps a picture and then posts it, and then all of a sudden it's viral. I think one of the gentlemen that was dating one of either the Jenners or the Kardashian got caught in that trap, which was he was out with another girl and somebody snapped a picture of him at the restaurant with this girl, and hey, that's not his girlfriend.
Right. And, social media, the thing about it is, you're right, that 6 degrees of separation, everybody's connected pretty closely. At this point, the world has gotten substantially smaller with the digital imprints that we all have. And so if you think you're alone, very rarely are you. Everybody has a phone, which means everybody has a camera, which means a lot of those people can post instantaneously. And you don't really have any control over that. And so, simple searches can bring up a lot of that information. So, you just need to really contemplate what you're doing as you anticipate, or if you're already involved in any type of litigation, because it will come back to haunt you.
And like I said, this goes across the gamut, because there's been many a criminal defendant that's gotten convicted because of silly things they're posting online.
Oh, not only that, Brian, but people will check in, right? They'll say, hey, I'm checking in at all these different places, even though maybe I'm not posting what's going on there. Well, then somebody says, well, where were you? And you say something else, and now they've called you a liar. And once you're a liar in court, it's really hard to recover. anything that you say, it could be, true information. A court's always going to be more skeptical of your testimony, the information that you present when you're caught in those types of traps. And smart lawyers will put you in those boxes many, many times.
Yes. And and keep in mind that it's not just Facebook posts. It's not just Twitter posts. It could be, they've got tons of new stuff now. They've got, every day I think they're coming up with a new app. I have to ask my 10-year-old kid what new apps are coming out because I don't know. There's, I know a lot of the kids are gravitating towards TikTok these days, and there's, celebrities and everybody you can think of posting TikTok videos, or Snapchat, which, as I understand it, you post something and then it goes away after a while, but like you said, with the ability to screenshot stuff, excuse me, it never really goes away.
Agreed. Next point I would tell you that you're going to want to kind of avoid, even though it's a huge temptation, is bashing the other party. Boy, it's like the ultimate soapbox, the ultimate open mic event. When you have social media, you have a substantial amount of followers, or even if it's just friends and family, but you want to get the message out about how you've been wronged and how the other person is just terrible and horrible and done all these incredibly awful things. A lot of times that may make you feel like it's cathartic, right? I feel better once I got it off my chest, but then it comes back around, all these vicious and vile things potentially that people say over and over and over again. And it can really have a negative impact on the way you're perceived as you enter the courtroom.
Absolutely.
That's especially concerning too. I want, our audience to pay attention is during divorce or modification, when you're talking about children, a lot of times what I'll tell clients is if you can take the high road, you always want to take the high road. If you can come in a court with clean hands, that's always going to be the best position to find yourself in. Because the second anybody to talk about how, you are treating somebody who you're related to, that you had children with, that you built a substantial amount of assets together, whatever those are, the more that you look like you are, taking the low road, that you're really the person with, less integrity really in the relationship, it disinclines a court from wanting to give you what you want. Because, we all know that court is not black and white. The law is, but courts are made up of people in black robes who like you or dislike you for 100 different reasons. And social media can definitely be one of those things that gives a court, pause as to whether or not they want to give you that deference when it matters most.
And I would tell you that the character witnesses that you're going to call typically in your case are going to be friends and family. They're going to be people that are probably your friends on Facebook or whatever social media outlet you're using. So they're going to see all this stuff, and then that's going to be part of the testimony potentially, and that's going to come out. I'll also give you a good example as a word of warning is oftentimes when you have older children, your children become your friends on Facebook and things like that. So, if you're out there trashing the other parent about what they are doing or not doing, your son or daughter is going to potentially see that. And then if the judge knows that your son or daughter is a friend of yours on Facebook, and then is seeing your posts about how bad the ex is, that goes a long way in an alienation, type of argument about what you should or shouldn't have with respect to your child custody order.
Oh, you couldn't be more correct, Bryan. And the other thing to keep in mind as you're considering these, when we talk about incriminating, I don't mean just like criminally. A lot of times I mean as an example, you're social mediaing it out with friends, and the person that your spouse thinks that you're having an affair with happens to be there, in these photographs. And so these are a lot of things that I would tell you, like if you anticipate something like that, it could be as simple as retail therapy, right? I will tell you, you're going in and you're saying there's a waste claim because mom's just spending money left and right for no reason. And then you go up and you pull up her, check-in history, and she's checking in at Chanel. She's checking in at Neiman's. She's checking in at the spa. And you're just like, look at all the money that's being wasted, in the estate. So there's a lot of different ways that social media can be applied in a case. And we think like incriminating, well, I'm not out committing a crime. I'm just doing daily life. But if that's not the picture that you want to paint, then don't put it on social media.
Yes, I mean, and there are instances where social media can help your case. I mean, if you're trying to paint the picture of being an active and involved dad, and you can show your Facebook history as you're checking in at your son's little league game, or you're showing up at the class event, and you've got pictures and stuff like that. Um, that's going to help you. That's also going to help bolster your case. But I wouldn't advise going on a Facebook or Twitter propaganda campaign to show what a great parent you are, because that does, oftentimes if you look at the entire history of your page, it looks very self-serving.
Yeah, I would agree. But I mean, I think it's, if you can use it to bolster who you are in a positive way, you should absolutely have that conversation with your attorney, because it can be very powerful. The other thing I would tell you to avoid, if you can, is the mistake of trying to snoop or ghost your ex or your current. Hacking their social media account, trying to get on and see what's happening, altering or modifying them, putting something on their wall to make them look, embarrassed, or put them in a negative light. Those types of things, one, are typically violations of those standing orders that I talked about. But in addition to that, they can get you in all kinds of hot water.
I mean, potentially criminal liability in some of those, depending on the breach.
Absolutely, both state and federal. So there's all kinds of new laws about, accessing, violating the electronic privilege, right? Not having the passcode, but guessing it, hacking it, downloading a program that's like a keystroke logger so that you can see everything that's typed. You really need to know what's going on in your state and seek the advice of competent counsel to advise you as to what you're doing and whether it's legal. I mean, this can go all the way to tracking somebody's position, right? GPS on their phone, or putting a GPS tracker on the vehicle. These are all things that through social media, a lot of times you can do.
Yes, so spying on your ex is definitely a bad thing, and showing up where your ex is, because based on their Facebook searches, is a major problem, and you want to avoid it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the big piece of that too, think about personal safety, because we've been talking about the negative implications of it, but there's also just this personal safety that I always want to tell clients about. Look, social media can be almost like gasoline on a fire, right? It can antagonize a situation if like, let's say there's been domestic violence or family violence, or you run the potential of, if you're the person having an affair, having a very upset and pissed off ex show up at a restaurant that you're there because you're checking in, or you're posting stuff on social media because you're at this club with all your friends drinking and having a great time. I mean, it can really just make things worse for you in a case. So just really contemplate what you're doing, when you're doing, what you're posting, if you're going to go into a case in that situation.
Sure. So can taking pictures of your new house or your new truck and your child support case can have a pretty big impact on, if you're going to court and saying you're trying to get a child support reduction, you probably shouldn't be posting pictures of this great house or great car that you have, or you're out eating at the Steak and Shop House every weekend.
So I call that humble bragging, Brian. Humble bragging.
Yes.
I'm humble, but doggone it, don't I have some cool stuff?
Yes.
I just bought my Corvette, but I really don't want to be able to have to pay child support. Or, hey, I'm really struggling over here as a housewife, but doggone that massage and that, day trip to Neiman's where I purchased some Gucci belts and a new purse. By gosh, life is hard.
Well, retail therapy can be important. It can be very important.
But these are the kinds of things, to your point, absolutely, that lawyers and courts will use against you if these are the things that you're trying to address. A simple example would be a personal injury case. You're involved in a car wreck case, and you're out in the front yard throwing the ball with the kid, and you're doing backflips and showing him how agile and docile you are, and then you're going to show up in a court and kind of limp in there and say, I've got all this pain and injury, and they're going to bring up, hey, look at this cool post that you did right before the Super Bowl, jumping around, and you seem fine. So, these are kinds of the things that, social media, you don't really think about it as you're doing it, because you just think, oh, what a cool video, or that we look great in that, or how fun, I want to share that with the family. You just got to remember that, it is available, especially, and the last point I would make is check your settings, okay? Because, obviously in this day and age, there's many things that, social media is used for. Criminals track individuals to know when you're on vacation. If you're posting pictures in Grand Cayman, and it's not likely that you're at your house. So, the time, when you post those, same thing with, family and divorce issues, you're going in and they're looking at, what are your settings? If they're open to the public, then it's much easier for individuals to access the information that you're putting on social media. So, try to keep those close knit during these types of cases. But even then, I always tell clients, look, they'll say, oh, hey, I'm not worried about it. My settings are private. They're only with my friends and family. And I would love to tell you that your friends and family always love you, that they always just want to, think of you and do the things that are right for you. It could be inadvertent or it could be intentional, that they sit there and they're upset with you, or they don't like what you're doing or the way you're behaving or what's transpiring, or they just love your husband or wife or, relative or children, and they want to share that information. And so you think it's private, but it's going to get out. So don't think that just because you have private settings, it's secure.
You also need to consider what your kids are posting, what your kids are putting out into the universe. If you're the parent who says that you're the one who's actively involved with the children, but they're allowed to spend 7 hours a day on social media, and you can find out how long your kids are spending on online, and you're not monitoring that, or if the kids are posting stuff about the divorce, or if the kids are posting inappropriate things, that can impact and look bad on your ability to parent your children. So if your son or daughter is posting inappropriate pictures or jokes online and things like that, number one, they could have a problem there with their own selves as they go through life. But in addition, it could affect your case in a negative way, because the court's then looking at you saying, well, what kind of parenting is going on at your house if this stuff is allowed to go on?
Absolutely. Very correct. And great point, Brian. Great point. So, there's a lot of great things about social media, obviously, and families far apart, you get to kind of still share each other's lives, be involved, get to participate, see what's going on. But, there are risks involved in that are inherent in just sharing information. And so I would encourage anyone who's got an account, who has children, who's going to be in a family law type case, to really
be responsible with it.
Yeah, contemplate what you're going to put on there and where potentially it could go.
Yes, and you also always have to be careful with Facebook about who you're attracting as friends and who's looking at your posts. Like you said, if your settings are all open to the public and everybody can see everything, well, everybody's going to know about you. Everybody can find out about you. If it's closed to just a few of your close friends, that's one thing. But if it's open to 1,000 friends or more, then a lot more people are going to know. Your circle's going to be that much wider. But Sam and I have both had numbers of cases where people reconnect with people that they went to high school with on Facebook, and that becomes, fertile ground for, divorce cases and evidence to come to light where many relationships are rekindled on Facebook, or at high school reunions or different things like that.
Oh yeah, the one that got away, Brian. The one that got away.
The great white buffalo, right?
That's right. That's right.
But and it goes. The same thing holds true for Twitter. I know that we have a president that likes to take to Twitter, quite frequently, and I know it's a very, very popular media where you can express your opinion or express your thoughts in 140 characters or less. Right? You've got to be real careful about what you put out there, and because you can't convey tone. People don't exactly know what's going on. And if you're posting stuff, it can make you look. It can paint you in all kinds of different lights. And a good attorney taking a look at your Twitter page could paint you as whatever they wanted to potentially paint you as, in a negative way. So you have to be really, really, like I said, really, really cautious, really, really careful. While social media is great tools to get information, it's great tools to share information. It's also something that it's one of those things like the great Ben Parker, Spider-Man's uncle, used to say, with great power comes great responsibility. So it's something that has to be used with great responsibility.
Love that line. Love that line.
Well, you got anything else for us?
That's all I have for today. I think we've got some great topics coming up in the next couple of weeks, but I definitely think this was a hot button one, and I think it's just going to stay a hot button one So definitely a great topic to bring up.
So if you like what you hear, please give us a review. It certainly helps us out. And if you'd like to hear more or have us discuss different topics or have some questions, please feel free to email us. We have our email will be posted. It's posted with this podcast with the show notes. So if you want to get in contact with us, our information is available. And I wish you all the best. Have a great weekend, and go Niners.
Go Niners.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the Top Texas Lawyers podcast. If you would like a consultation with either Bryan or Sam, please call 1-888-981-7509 or visit us on the web at astxlegal.com. Once again, that's astxlegal.com. Thank you very much.